Tonight on Newsnight Scotland, who does he think he is? The Deputy First Minister says the President of the European Commission isn't speaking for Europe and isn't even speaking common sense. Does she have a point? Good evening. Nicola Sturgeon didn't mince her words today. She said denying an independent Scotland membership in the European Union would be an absolute affront to democracy. That followed remarks by Manuel Barosso at the weekend to the effect that it would be difficult or even impossible for an independent Scotland to join the EU. We'll be debating today's events in a moment. But first, the BBC's Europe correspondent, Matthew Price, spent yesterday looking around Brussels for Newsnight to see what they were making of the controversy.
There are other countries that might not want Scotland's road to membership to be a particularly fast one, and being outside the EU's single market, even for a limited time, would be costly. Still, analysts think eventually Edinburgh would get into the club.
The process is uncertain, it's an unprecedented situation, it could take some time, but in the end, clearly Scotland would fulfill the obligations of membership. I would find it very difficult to see that it would be kept out indefinitely.
Just across from the European Commission is Scotland House. They didn't want to talk to us about any of this, but the country's representation here in Brussels is clearly already well placed. And maybe, just maybe, one day, this could become Scotland's embassy to the EU.
Well, that was the view from the BBC Bureau in Brussels. The subject was raised in Holyrood today and also preoccupied some distinguished academic commentators, as Graham Stewart reports.
Well, no surprise that Barrosso's intervention topped the agenda at the Scottish Parliament this afternoon, but Nicola Sturgeon said any decision about Scotland's future membership of the EU was not one for the European Commission.
It would be against the interests not just of Scotland but of the entire European Union for Scotland to be outside of that union. It would also be contrary to the founding principles of the European Union for Scotland to be excluded just because Scots had exercised their democratic right to self-determination.
Backing that view today was the Regis Professor of Public Law at Edinburgh University, Neil Walker. He says he's inclined to vote no in September, but has nonetheless challenged Barrosso's intervention, pointing out that, as the unelected President of the European Commission, he has no mandate, that the Commission has no legal authority over questions such as new membership, except insofar as they're directly specified in the treaties. And that even as someone who possesses a good insider's view of the EU, those same treaties suggest that the Commission President has a constitutional duty to promote the general interests of the EU, rather than simply weighing the self-interests of any individual nations or parties, as he appeared to do in Sunday's interview.
Of course, it will be extremely difficult to get the approval of all the other member states to have a new member coming from one member state. We have seen, for instance, that Spain has been opposing even the recognition of Kosovo, for instance. So it's, to some extent, a similar case, because it's a new country. And so I believe it's going to be extremely difficult, if not impossible.
The comments provoked a furious reaction from the nationalist blogosphere. Journalist George Keravin argues they should be taken more as a coded warning to the Catalans, given that Barosso, as ex-Prime Minister of Portugal, is close to Madrid, which poses the question whether this is even about Scotland at all.